to point out Will is W-I-L-L. There's no S. People have been doing that lately. So Tony Will, 2 male names. But why am I opening this podcast with this? Because I thought you'd want a fun little fact. You're listening to Women In. This is a podcast that celebrates women in all walks of life and the people in their lives who are lifting them up. You will hear from all kinds of super cool people in my life, and they're going to share their stories to inspire others to support the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. I often get asked about why I started this podcast, and it's really simple. It's to break down barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you happen to be in my family and friends circle. And my guest today falls in, like many of my guests, into multiple categories in that list, but definitely started in the world of sports. John Peterson is joining me. And I'm going to tell you about John. This is going to be an untraditional bio reading because I'm going to piece it together from LinkedIn. John was a vice president of communication for the Tulsa Oilers, which is a team in the ECHL. He then came to the Kalamazoo Wings as the director of public relations and broadcasting in 2019. And then a couple years later, in November of 2021, John moved to the Texas Stars in the American Hockey League as the manager of broadcasting and media relations. John is a husband and a new father as well to a daughter. And so this is such amazing timing. And John has interviewed me multiple times for various things for the work we did together. So I am so excited to have you on, John, because now the shoe is on the other foot. Hi, how are you?
Hi, it's great to see you. A little bit of role reversal from what I'm used to. So I'm looking forward to being on this side of the microphone.
It's so cool. Well, I don't know what I was doing a week or two ago, but I had to Google my name for some reason, not for vanity purposes, everyone, but, and one of our interviews popped up in the search back during the pandemic, and we were creating content, and I'm like, I was like, my camera was wrong, my hair was wrong, it was a mess, but not because of you, John, because of me. So
if it makes you feel any better, the first couple that we did during the pandemic, I was wearing a baseball cap and a sweatshirt or a hoodie, and I'm in my basement, and I'm thinking, man, at least look professional.
We didn't know what we were doing. Not that we weren't professionals in that space, but we're trying to work from home. We're trying to be relevant in the middle of this pandemic, and we weren't playing hockey. It was such a weird time, but we made it, and look at us now.
Hey, we grew. We improved ourselves during the pandemic. That's for sure. Professionally, I gained a lot of experience in the pandemic, rolling with the punches.
Gosh, did we ever? And we did that, and you and I did that together. And so my first question, so everyone truly knows how we first met. How did we meet? How do you remember that first time we met?
I remember it being a whirlwind because I was with Tulsa. The season was winding down. We were, I think, in the playoffs, or maybe the playoffs had just ended. I was good friends with your previous broadcaster, Isaac Berkey, and he had kind of shared with me because I think Kalamazoo came to Tulsa late in the season. I think it was early April. And I remember us having lunch, sitting down and having lunch in Tulsa, and he mentioned he may move on. He'd given it a lot of thought. And I was kind of at a point where I was ready to move on myself from Tulsa. And I wanted a new challenge. I wanted, there was a number of factors, but family was up in the Midwest. Carrie, my wife, her family is in the Midwest. And I'd heard great things. I mean, that was the other thing is I'd heard great things about the K-Wings through Isaac and through Joe Roberts, who I know well as well. So I had reached out to you and I think through Isaac about the position if it had opened. And I think the first time we actually met was in Vegas at the ECHL League meetings. I hadn't met you in person until then. And that was when I think we were far enough along in the process of talking about the broadcasting position there in Kalamazoo that, it wasn't like we hadn't met before. It was the first time we'd met in person, but it felt like we knew each other at least a little bit.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, that was the league meeting because I hosted the league awards for many years. This is the first year, you're not in the league anymore, so you don't know, but I don't host them anymore. I have passed on the torch to someone else. And we were interviewing you for the role, and I was about ready to hand you Broadcaster of the Year. I remember that. It was so cool.
Yeah. So I had no clue and your whole staff, because we had to meet the staff in the hotel there in Vegas, and I got to meet everybody that would eventually be coworkers. Everybody knew, I think. I think you had told them, and I had just interviewed with you and Brad, and I had no idea. I didn't even know I was nominated for the award. So you guys kept that secret, and I think it was either later that day or the next day was when it all happened, and I was just like, oh, now it checks out. Now it was putting the pieces together.
Yeah, it was so cool to be able to hand you that award and then know that I was going to offer you the job. And I had to talk to Taylor, who's the Tony of Tulsa, and be like, hey, man, which we do that in the league. There's we respect each other and don't want to hurt each other's franchises, but we certainly want upward mobility for our staff. And I knew when I hired you, I'm like, I'm not going to have this guy as long as I'd like, because of how talented you are. And I was right, but but that's good. It's good to be right in those circumstances, and we'll talk about more about what you do here. But yeah, it's so cool how the world of sports, isn't it? Because we get to foster these relationships all over the country and into Canada and what we do. And you've been doing this a long time. How many years have you been in hockey now?
Oh gosh, I would even go back my senior year of college. So 2009, 2010 was really the first year broadcasting hockey. First year in pro hockey was 15, 16. I was with Evansville before going to Tulsa. Yeah, and they went dark after that year. So that was a short-lived experience, but it was the first pro experience. So this coming season, Tony, it's going on 10 years now in pro hockey.
Yeah, because I started with the K-Wings in 14-15. I am about ready to tap on 10 years with being this franchise. 10 years.
And now you can focus to another milestone coming up, the team milestone, which is exciting.
Yeah, as you know, we're going to be turning 50 years old. And having worked for me, you know that I always have grandiose ideas, and I am not disappointing this
I can't
year.
wait. I can't wait to see what you guys do.
Yeah, last season was quite the season for us. We won 2 league awards, Inclusive Spirit and Group Sales Growth year over year. And it's to me to receive those accolades, those team accolades. Like, it's not Tony's award, right? It's the team and the work we do. It's just so cool. And you were a part of that, building that. You were part of the 50 years that the K-Wings are going to be.
I remember how excited we were in Vegas were we in Vegas, or was it because of COVID? Maybe we were at home, but when we won the marketing department of the year award, we were at home. That's right. Because we all got together as a staff to watch the live show on Facebook, and only Tim and I knew the winners.
Remember we filmed that in my living room?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And for us to win that team award meant more than the year or two prior when I won the broadcaster award, because the amount of work that we put in on a weekly basis, and everybody contributed. And then the monthly, marketing sessions that we had, it just really put into perspective, winning that award as a team and what that meant was so special. And then, here in Texas, and I don't want to fast forward too far, but we just won the marketing award this year. So it's the second time that I've been a part of a team that's been so successful as a unit, as a group. With everybody has their own individual talents. You have your social media person, your graphic designer, your manager of the department, your video person, your broadcaster, your mascot, whoever that's a part of the marketing team. And everybody has their special talents. And then to come together and be recognized by the league is pretty cool.
Congratulations to you all, and to you for being part of, in our world at the K-Wings, I call it the creative team. I divided us in half, creatives on one side and sales on the other. And we all work hand in hand, but how I structured the meetings and things like that. And I still do all those same, not that you're surprised, the structure that I still have all the same stuff, but that you were part of both of those award-winning teams.
Yeah, and it's small part. I mean, there are people that are, I think, they do much more in the day-to-day and from a managing the department standpoint and leading the department. And I contribute in my creative craziness, I like to say, as I can. And then the execution, I think that's where the broadcaster really can kind of hammer everything home, is the end plan, executing it on the air. But yeah, it's a small part. It's a small part of a great team. And that's how it was there. And I'm fortunate that it was an easy transition here because our marketing team's very strong here too.
You are a very gifted broadcaster. I have listened to many, 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 many broadcasting reels. demo reels over my years because, as you pointed out, for the K-Wings in the 10 years I've been here, I've hired 4 different broadcasters. And these jobs, as John knows, is the most coveted of all the positions I hire. And it was a fantastic learning curve for me because, oh my God, we just get so many applications. When you think it's growing a little bit, but 96 professional hockey teams. I think we're closer now to 100 because the ECHL keeps expanding. Because we're up to 29 teams now in the coming season, but close to 100 teams. So that means there's 100 broadcasting jobs, period, in professional hockey. And when you think only 100, that's not much when you think of the population of the U.S. or Canada. And so, when I listened to yours, I was like, man, you have this ability, John, and I'm not a pro at broadcasting. I'd be terrible at it. But to tell the story that's happening on the ice and in a sport that is so fast and in a way that you're not rushed as you talk about it. Like, you're not frenzied or I don't know, you're just so calm and you're not doing some fake voice some broadcasters do. You're just John. I don't know, you're so good at it. How'd you get good at it?
I don't know. If you ask my parents, when I was 5-6 years old and I'd have a babysitter over watching us, my siblings and my parents were off at work or an event or what have you. And I would have a little Sega Genesis video game, a hockey video game that was like old school. And I think apparently, I don't remember doing this, but I would talk as I'm playing this game as if I'm broadcasting the video game as it's happening. And I don't know where that came from. And I didn't know until much, much, much later on that I was passionate about it, that I actually enjoyed it as an adult and wanted to do it as a career. But I think it just came from watching the sport, falling in love with the sport, and we didn't have a pro team. I mean, Minnesota's team left for Dallas. Ironically, I'm in Dallas's system now, but when I was young, I was 6 or 7. And so those childhood years of watching hockey, all I could do was watch the national games and fall in love with the sport and not really have a rooting interest. And I think that's where I gravitated towards the really good broadcasters that I would watch on a nightly basis on ESPN or whatever network was carrying the games. And it took a lot of practice and dedication and passion. I mean, those are trigger words I think that get overused sometimes, but like passion for what you do is so important, whatever that may be. And then on top of that, because passion for what you do is not going to carry the day, but I think your preparation going into every broadcast, I probably spend 6 to 8 hours at home on my couch doing things that I, didn't have time for in the office during the workday and had to, get ready for the upcoming game. And, it doesn't always get used. I probably use 1% of the stuff that I write down and put into the notes, but the stuff that you do use in the moment, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. That's where I think the calmness that you mentioned comes through. Is you have to trust in the work you put in ahead of time so that when the moment comes and you're kind of on the spot, you don't butcher it, you don't mess it up.
So even though this is such good learnings for anyone listening to this, because you put 7 to 8 hours of prep work in, but what that does is build confidence in what your subconscious is retaining some of that. And so you feel confident and calm going into the broadcast. So you're probably using way more than 1%, but what a great point. And then, what I was thinking about off air, we were talking about this industry, right? And so broadcasters, like people being the voice of a team, boy, does that sound appealing, right? It's sexy, as I like to say. People don't really know how unsexy, not the broadcasting part is cool and sexy, but the money is not. Right? Yeah. I mean, you're not
in the work you put in. Right. Well, in the work you put in too, Tony, I mean, during the season, I tell people I would put in 80-hour weeks, and most teams that I've worked for, it's a salaried position, which is great. But when you break it down to what you're making per hour because you're working so hard during the season, it's really not that much. It's not as glamorous as people think. It's enjoyable. Some days it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a hobby, a very nerdy hobby that we enjoy. And I think that's where you kind of reap the benefits a little bit, is you live for those moments. You live for being able to watch your favorite sport for free, get paid to do it actually, and kind of tell the story, and be a part of the
Yeah, and
excitement.
see the country, right? And
Yeah.
meet
Oh
some
yeah.
amazing people. And now
Yep.
this can't happen without. And when I reached out to John, John, when I decided to launch this podcast, it was when I was out on a walk one day, and I just was like, I've got this idea. And I walked in the door, I typed out the entire what it was, and then 30 days later, it was launched. And in that write up, I did. I put like 50 people I wanted on the podcast because my producer, who well, he was like, Tony, if you can get to 50, that a lot of podcasts don't get there. Well, I love a good goal. All right, 50.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you were on my list, and I was like, I got to reach out to John because I respect you so much, and because I know you have a lot of amazing women in your life and that make
Yeah.
it possible for you to do this job, because this is not for the faint of heart what this career is. So will you tell me about the women in your life that have made it possible for you to be you and successful in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are so many names that come to mind. Inspiration from a young age, from an age where I didn't know what I wanted to do, coming out of high school, going to college, and then once I started this career path, people in my corner that were such a consistent support system, and then I needed women at the professional level to challenge me. I mean, like I've told you multiple times, is I think you were the perfect boss to come into my life when you did, because I kind of had reached my peak in Tulsa, where I had achieved everything I wanted to achieve. I wasn't 100% happy at that moment. I didn't know how much longer I wanted to continue that journey. I still had the same dream of getting to the NHL, but I needed somebody to challenge me, but also let me succeed, set me up to succeed, keep me in check, but also challenge me as well. And you joke about your organization and your spreadsheets and your meetings and your calendar invites, and I loved that. I needed it. It also drove me crazy, but in a good way. Because I didn't have any of that coming from where I came from, and it was a full 180, and it really, really helped me become more organized. My mom and my stepmom are very strong women that have always been supportive of my career and have always been fans. I think your parents are your biggest fans, and my mom listens to every broadcast if she can to this day, still. And I've been doing this
What's
for
your mom's
15
name? Because
years.
she's going to listen to this. Wendy.
Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
My mom, Wendy. And she's come to visit me a couple of times. She's driven from Minneapolis, St. Paul area, 5 hours, 6 hours to Rockford to see us play Rockford, which isn't, I mean, with all due respect, Rockford's not necessarily, I call it Rock Vegas, but it's not necessarily as enticing of a place to go to than Las Vegas. But that's how supportive she is. She's come to Milwaukee to see us play Milwaukee. She has come down to Texas to see some games. My stepmom, Kristen, is a very successful businesswoman, so driven by her craft and her relationships that she's built. And, she's inspiring to watch do what she does. And my mom she's retired now, but my mom worked 40 years at a bank and worked her way up with an associate's degree as a teller all the way up to district manager.
Wow.
I mean, it's truly a success story. So I have strong women in my family. My grandmas are all strong. The ones that are still around, very strong women. Now that I'm married, and I'm married to a very strong-willed, hardworking woman, and Carrie, I got to give a shout out to my
Yes.
wife, Carrie. My in-laws, there's so many strong women in her family. So it's a trend, and it's a joy to be around, and it's a joy to learn from them. But it's also something that I think I need to be successful in my own path, is to have strong women around me in leadership roles and support roles, and you name it. And now, as you started off the podcast, now I'm a proud father of a little 7-week-old daughter, and she's my everything. I mean, she's she inspires me for what's to come and how I can be better for her future and to set her up to
Yeah,
succeed.
I mean, and that our kids. So John and I are polarities right now when it comes to parenting. I got two in college and a senior coming up a senior in high school, and yours just starting. You know, Chloe's gonna be a senior. It's crazy.
That's
I
incredible.
know. And
Yeah.
so when I talk about at the intro, like, 'cause you know, I'm one of only a handful of women, if that, that do what I do for a living every day. And this is where all this was spurred from, right? And I've been doing work to um, advocate for women in sports for many years, kind of behind the scenes. And the last year or so, I've been, well, not year, probably last 3 years, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going loud. And that's what I
Yeah.
do best, right? And so
Yeah.
I've been beating this drum. And so when I talk about this, does it feel like it? Because you're already someone that you're such a heart on your sleeve kind of guy, and I mean that's why
Oh, for better or worse. For
I
better or
love that
worse.
though. I mean that's one of the many reasons why our relationship really works. But when you think now about this, and when it's to your daughter and the work that I'm doing, I would imagine now at just 7 weeks old, you want some of these barriers removed. Whether she works in sports or
Oh yeah.
wherever she ends up doing, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. The stuff that you're doing, I think that's something that I noticed when I was still in Kalamazoo is really, it was during the pandemic, if I remember right, it all started with your focus on improving yourself. And I think, swearing off alcohol altogether and focusing on you. And then you turn that into your mindfulness elevated project business, and now you're helping others, and that's inspiring. And then bigger picture, I mean, some of the things that Kalamazoo has done as a team for the sports world is groundbreaking, and it was when I was there, but I never got to see some of the things executed because I left that season. I think that we had some plans in place, and to see those executed from afar is a proud moment. It is something that's you guys should all be proud of, but it's groundbreaking in the sense that it's not always an easy conversation, and it's not easy to pull everybody in. You're never going to make everybody happy, but you don't care. I mean, you know that you're doing the right thing. You know you're doing the right thing for not just the sport, but for the world, I think, to see that, it does no good to hold people back, regardless of if it's race or gender or you name it. I mean, you're much better off pumping people up and promoting the positives that everybody has, and that everybody, unique characteristics that everybody carries, than be negative and bring it down. I mean, why be internet trolls, I think, they're still very prevalent, but they don't have the same impact that they used to, right? Because there's going to be negativity. They're usually the loudest in the room, but it's in one ear out the other because of some of the work laid down by people that are doing positive things for the world. I mean, that drowns out a lot of the noise.
and that's the world I want our kids to. And you and I are very smart people, and as we keep going through midlife, it's never an easy road. But if we can, the work we're doing, remove some of these challenges, they're still going to have challenges. Hopefully, be different, or maybe not have to have some of these conversations, right? So. Right. Parenthood, or the entry into parenthood, is it's such a huge transition, and we look at the world differently. And so for as open-hearted and just the softy that you are, John, it's going to be even much, you probably been even more softened.
I'm telling, if you would have met me 10 years before you did, I don't want to say I was a hard ass necessarily, because I wasn't, but I don't think that softness kind of shone through at the time. I was perennially single before I met Carrie. I like to joke. Up until I was 27, 28, and I just didn't know the world. I had my preconceived views of the world. And I don't want to say that I was a bad guy by any stretch, but I formed into who I am in the years since. And I see the world with much more compassion than I used to. It's not so much the X's and O's of this or that, or this issue or that issue, or, you name it. It's trying to see the world through the eyes of somebody completely different from me. And it's not always a success story. Sometimes you have to keep trying to improve yourself. I mean, And I definitely strive to be better each day. But yeah, that softness, I think, you know, I'm a
Mhm.
sensitive guy, so there it starts with family and those in my close circle, but it goes far beyond that too. It's
Yeah.
empathy, you know, for people that maybe don't have some of the fortunes that I do, and what I get to do what I love to do every day. And I worked really hard for it, but also I've been given some opportunities that, I'm very fortunate of. Each job that I've gotten along the way, there's been some sort of luck factor. I had to be in the position for the luck to help my career, but there had to have been some fortune along the way, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think being able to see that only helps me try to be a better person each day and not take anything
Yeah.
for granted.
Well, gratitude is such a it's I think you are one of these individuals that it comes naturally for you to see that the gratitude. And for me, I've had to work at that, like you mentioned. And I chose in the middle of the pandemic or the beginning to say I could use this opportunity to sit here and continue to lean into my vices, or I can use this as an opportunity to change who I am, my identity, right? And go from, as my friends called me, Tony Party Time, to whatever, just Tony Will, I guess. Well, I changed names during that time too.
You need a better
Yeah,
nickname now. Yeah, you need a better
yeah, because
nickname
I
now.
got married in the middle of that too.
Yeah.
So it's just gratitude is just so important because it leads to a more positive life. And you talk about luck sometimes, but really, if you're looking at glass or life as half full instead of half empty, you put that energy out in the world, and people want to be around that, right? And
Yeah.
you're one of those people you just want to be around, as is your wife. And I want to spend a little bit of time on Carrie, because she is such a fantastic woman. But more so, what I want to talk about is you've lived in several states together. You literally have moved around the country, and this saying about a strong woman behind the man, and
Yeah.
do I love? I'm going to say not behind the man, but next to the man, right? So like
Yeah.
equals.
Yep.
So will you share like
Yep.
how you two have navigated this? Because it is not, the divorce rate is high in general in America, but when you go into
Yeah.
sports, it's even higher.
Hmm.
So how have you guys navigated this throughout your career and the moves and your public facing job?
Yeah, well, it's something that it's definitely, you have to work hard at your relationship regardless of what you do. I mean, as you say, that the divorce rate is so high in this country, and COVID didn't help. There's a lot of people that got sick of each other or couldn't make it work during COVID, and that had its challenges. But then, being a broadcaster specifically, in pro sports, there aren't a lot of married broadcasters, especially at the minor league level, because of the demands and the schedule and the travel. And it's very, very difficult. It takes a really special, significant other to be able to put up with what we do and be supportive of it, and also have their own goals in mind. And what I really admire about Carrie is, we met in Tulsa, I think my first couple of weeks on the job there in 2016. We did the first couple of years long distance while I was working for the Oilers. She was getting her master's degree because she has her own career goals and her own aspirations. And so that was really, really a unique start to our relationship, and really, really cool, I think. And then when she got her master's degree and I was in my final year in Tulsa, we moved in together. We got engaged. We got a dog. We did all the things that people check off their list, right? And we moved to Kalamazoo just a couple of weeks after we got married. So we got married in 2019 and moved to Kalamazoo for the K-Wings job. And I'll tell you, like, there were a lot of great things that experience did for us, in the sense that obviously it was really good for my career. It brought us closer to her family, and those types of positives, right? But there are a lot of challenges too. I mean, she put her career aspirations on hold for this opportunity for us to move to Kalamazoo shortly after our wedding, and never really never really found that while we were there. I think that was the hardest part. It wasn't as fulfilling for her professionally as maybe it was for me, and so I really admire her ability to survive that, to get through that. And then with COVID, that brings a whole nother challenge to the mix. So I think this Texas opportunity, when it came up, Tony, and I remember distinctly getting ready for opening night in Kalamazoo, and we had just finally got through the pandemic, or enough so that we were going to play again, because we sat out the 2021 season, and we were all excited. We had all these plans in place. I wasn't even thinking of moving up at that point. It was June, July, August, maybe. If something opens up, great. I'll put my name into the hat, see what happens. I mean, we're talking October, and it's K-Wings. Not even thinking about moving up, and I actually got a call about the position through somebody in my network who's in the organization. And first person I called was Carrie. And I said, what are your thoughts? It's Texas. It's not really our vibe. We're Midwesterners, right? Texas is a much different experience for people like us. But it's Austin, Austin's a little more our cup of tea. And she was all about it. She was very supportive from the start. And I think that was enough where we both kind of took it as a fresh start, a positive step in the right direction, opportunity for her to get back into what she's passionate about, or something along those lines. And now, she's doing great things down here on her own. She's doing what she loves to do, and she's working hard and passionate about it. And I'm as big of a fan of hers as she is of mine. And it doesn't change the fact that the road trips and the travel are difficult. It never stops being difficult. I think even if I were to be fortunate enough to make it to the NHL someday, and the trips are shorter and we're not in hotels as often and we're taking charter flights and stuff, it may be a little bit easier. It's still not for everyone. And she's able to make it work and do what she wants to do with her career as well. That doesn't go away. So, and now we're both navigating this parenthood step, which is a fun experience.
Yeah, it is. What you just walked us through there was this beautiful description of what it truly is to be in a marriage or a committed relationship. Marriage is a piece of paper, right? And there's all the other stuff, but
yeah,
is the give and take and the compromise, right, of a relationship. And you guys have balanced that out beautifully. And I'm a big fan of your wife. We hit it off right away, and
we miss our sushi.
I was just thinking about sushi today. I'm like, maybe after I'm getting done working today, Josh and I should go get some sushi. Oh, we had so much fun. And John knew me back in my drinking days too. So we could talk about some of the Tony party time she was around. She can be fun sometimes, but I don't miss her anymore. But that's part of this too, is like I got out of that part of my life what I was supposed to, right? It's how I look at it. And that's about Kalamazoo for you and Carrie, right? You got out of Kalamazoo what you were supposed to. And I don't know if you know this story, if I told you this or not, but you came to me and you said, Tony, I've got this opportunity in Dallas. And you came to me before you were like in the interview process. And I said, knowing me, I think I said to you, John, I support you. It's October, right? And, and you're like, I know. Yeah. And I just said, I'm going to support you in whatever it is you want to do, and I'll figure it out on my end. So go for it. I think that's what I would say, right?
Yeah, no, it was probably the scariest conversation that I had with you while I was there, is because I knew that you'd be supportive, but I knew that in a big way I was letting you guys down. In a sense that there's not going to be somebody in that role until you're able to hire somebody else, bring them in, and get them started. And so, I had the same conversation with you that I had with Nick Bootland, who was the head coach at the time, to a different degree. It was more of a, what would you do in my shoes, Booter, if you got this opportunity at the AHL during the season. And then I think I felt better about it in talking with you and him, because you both said, go for it. We support you. You'd be crazy not to. And then Brad Vandenberg gave me the same. It was really comforting conversation that I had with him as well. That was similar to the one I had with you and Nick. And those were, it's a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. And, timing is everything in this business and in this world. And you don't always plan it out a certain way, and you try to be, you try to leave somewhere on good terms and not burn any bridges along the way if you can. And it's not always easy, but that was one that I really felt strongly about because of how I was treated there, and the opportunity I was given just to go there to Kalamazoo, that I wanted to leave it on good terms, even though the timing was not, something that anybody had planned for.
So this is a part of the story I don't know if you know, but I when you did tell me that you got the job, and I was very happy for you and very sad for me. I walked out of my office and I went in. So for those of you who've never been to Wings Event Center, it's a 50-year-old building. So I walked down the concourse and there's these like vestibule kind of areas, or I don't even know what you call it, but where there's a double set of doors. And I wanted to call Josh, my husband. And so I called Josh, and I don't cry at work very often, but I started crying and I said, John's leaving. And he knew, because we knew, and because I'm like, he's gonna get the job. He's John fucking Peterson. This guy's awesome, and in every way, like he's just a great person, and he's an amazing broadcaster and a great writer, and I mean, you're all the things. And I'm like, of course he's leaving, and I cried, and I'm like, Josh, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, because I faced a lot of challenges in this role over the years, but this one was tough because of when you were leaving, and I knew you. And so my goal, I'm like, I know John feels bad. I don't want him to feel bad, right? And I want him to go and know that I love him, and I send him off in the world and go do great things. Because listen, that makes us look great too here in Kalamazoo, right? That we're part of your resume, sure. Right? And so it was a two-way street, but I cried, and Josh says to me, as he always does in his ability to get through to me, he's like, Tony, you got this. And you'll make the right decisions. And I made some really difficult decisions that time. I pulled all the broadcasting until I hired someone else. There was no broadcasting for 2.5 months. And that's kind of ballsy. And I'm like, but I'm also a realist. Like, I love the Kalamazoo Wings, but we are a minor league sports team. It's not like tens of thousands of people are tuning in, right? And so I just said, sure. Our fans can listen to the away game broadcast. I'm going to get the hire right. And here's the thing. And this is great behind the scenes knowledge, because you helped me in who I was hiring. Because I said, John, I need you. And you were like, absolutely. And so you sent a list.
Chris was one of the names that I gave you.
And I didn't know Chris from a hole in the wall.
And honestly, this is a testament to Chris, though, Tony, is I didn't know Chris either until maybe a month before, or a couple of weeks before. And it was through another broadcaster that connection was made. So, I mean, this is where it's so important to make good relationships with people. And don't
burn bridges. And when you said that, I know for us that's been working for a long time, it seems so 101, but people really do not realize how small the worlds are that we work in. And sports is small, or whatever world whoever you're listening to, whether you're a lawyer or a doctor, or I don't know, you work at McDonald's, whatever, the worlds are small. It's a small world. True. You burn bridges. You're just stupid. And we've seen people do that.
Oh yeah, I've seen plenty of it, and you hate to see it, especially with people that you care about too, and people that you have good personal relationships with. You hate to see them shoot themselves in the foot when you want to see them succeed. And I think it's one lesson that I would constantly bring up when mentoring young up and coming broadcasters is how important it is, regardless of what you're doing, where you're doing it, to be a good person. Because as you said, there's hundreds of people that apply for every opportunity for broadcasting and head coaches, right? Those are the two jobs. And every boss I've ever had said, I have hundreds of resumes on my desk when there's a head coach opportunity and a broadcaster opportunity. And of those 100, I would say 40 or 50 can call a really good hockey game, like really solid candidates. And then you have to be a good person. You have to have people that can vouch for you, that you are a good person to work with. You're a hardworking individual, and otherwise, you're just gonna get those resumes are just gonna go right in the trash. And that's my biggest lesson that I tell people when I'm trying to give advice as well. If people reach out to me for advice as they begin their journey, is not everybody's path is the same. Some people jump right to the AHL, or some people grind it out. I mean, I spent years grinding it out in small town USA before I even got to the ECHL. and then another 6 years before I got to the AHL. And it has been a long journey, but I wouldn't change a
That's
thing.
why you're getting the gray hair,
And
John.
you, oh yeah, the gray beard, there's no avoiding it
I
at this
love it.
point. There aren't enough, thanks. There aren't enough products out there to fix it at this point. So I just have to, and honestly, I think I look older when I shave the beard altogether. If I go clean shaven, I probably look like I'm in my 50s already. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But the gray beard is actually more of a youthful look, I think, than going completely clean
Well,
shaven.
you'll
So,
appreciate this. My hair's back right now, and I've been doing this headband thing for a while because I'm just always on the move. But my hair's been going gray, and I decided I'm embracing it fully, and I'm actually going to on purpose go gray all the way. And I'm working. Yeah, I'm working.
oh wow,
Yeah,
awesome.
I think it's awesome, and I'm a total rebel, and I'm like, why not?
Yeah,
And
it's a power move.
exactly. So we'll see as I morph into it. You'll see it on social media, I'm sure. Because okay, so I need to know what are you reading or listening to right now? So listening, I mean, if you're into podcasts or if you're reading books, like what? Because you know I'm an avid reader. So what are you reading?
Yeah, I'm so as you may remember, I'm kind of a slow
Yes.
reader. It's not that I don't pick up on it or I'm a slow learner. I take time to read something, and if I'm not paying full attention and I get to the bottom of the page and I don't remember what I just read, I go back and read the page again. So there are a number of books that I was reading. I'm a big history nerd, so I was reading, World War One books and all these things that kind of bore me to sleep. But I'm interested in, but bore me to sleep. I just started reading a book that I got for Christmas last year. I didn't just start it. I should say I've been chipping away at it. And it's from Doc Emmerich, my idol, and many, many broadcasters' idols, the greatest to ever do it. And the short story behind it is my mother-in-law this was a gift from my mother-in-law, Janine, and she deserves all the credit. So I have to give her a shout out here. And she's not a huge sports fan. She knows some basics about certain sports. She knows a few names here and there, but she's not a big sports fan. But she's also been very supportive of my career ever since I met Carrie. And so we're up there in Michigan at Christmas, and she lives very close to where Doc Emmerich's retired in and lives in, the town that he lives in. So I don't know if you remember this, but one of the last games that I called for the K-Wings before COVID was in Fort Wayne in March of 2020. And they were honoring Doc Emmerich in their Hall of Fame ceremony, and he gave a speech beforehand. And then Michael Franke, rest in peace, he came up to the press box with Doc and said, "Hey, would you like to interview Doc during one of the intermissions?" And I said, "Oh, it would be a dream. It would be absolutely." So I got a chance to interview him during the intermission, but it carried into the third period, and he actually stayed on and did some color commentary during the third period. It was an absolute thrill, and I still have the recording. Long story short, so my mother-in-law remembered this 3 or so years later, and Doc has a book that he was being featured at the local library up there in Michigan, and he was going to sign some books. And she was actually going to be out of town. So she was going to be in Austin visiting us while Doc is doing this book signing in Michigan. And this was like months before Christmas, but she reached out to the library, called ahead to the librarian, told her the story of how I met Doc in Fort Wayne, in the press box. He's my idol. Now I'm a broadcaster for Texas, and she gave this note to the librarian and said, "Can you have him sign a book for my son-in-law for Christmas?" And Doc signs the book, personalizes it, and told the librarian to pass the message back along to my mother-in-law that he remembers me. He's the tall guy from Minnesota, right? And so he remembered who I was, and it was just such a special. It was one of the coolest gifts I've ever gotten. And so now I'm reading that book. So now I'm soaking it in. I'm not reading it fast. It's his story of how he got to where he
What
got.
an amazing story, gift. And I do remember that now that you, but do you, then I flash back to when COVID was crashing down and you and I was
Yeah.
like, John,
4 days
yes.
later.
And remember, I was
4
like,
days
you and
later.
I were in these calls and meetings together because I'm like, you're my PR guy, I'm the GM, and we're like locked arm in arm and we're looking at each other. We're like, what are we up against? Oh, what a crazy. So what a beautiful gift you got. Not the actual gift that your mother-in-law gave
Yeah.
you, but the gift of broadcasting with Doc right before the world came to
Yeah.
a halt. That was your
Right.
little in advance little attaboy before the shit show that was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that, and I love your mother-in-law's name, Janine. That's my mom's name too. I forgot about that, and it's a special name for sure. And actually, this necklace I'm wearing is a
Yep.
J. It's my mom's, and yeah.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and my mom is late stage Alzheimer's now, so we're navigating through that. So it's always just these special women in our lives, right? That
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. They're so
So
important.
let's wrap this up with how do you lift other women up? I mean, I experienced it firsthand, and actually this whole conversation really, but how do you plan to continue to lift women up around you?
Honestly, it's kind of reversing the stereotypical role of being as supportive as I can be for what each individual woman is doing in their role or their career, or whether it's a superior or somebody who's on our marketing team or our sales team or a family member or you name it. I think spotlighting the successes of the people around you is something that everybody can be doing. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what your role is. If you're how high up you are in the hierarchy of your business, um, if you can put your peers, your friends, your family, your superiors, you name it, on this pedestal and support them in what they do, um, what's the negative that comes from that? And so, I have a very strong woman as my boss now in Texas as well, and I thrive working in that environment. Just like I felt like I did in Kalamazoo, I'm so proud of the successes that my family members, the women in my family, have had and are continuing to have. My sister is a very strong woman with two young boys who works a full-time job, doing what she loves to do, and she's probably my biggest fan, who doesn't get enough love sometimes because she brags about me to everybody that she talks to, but I don't talk to her as much as I would like to. It's just more of that's how our family works. We catch up every now and again, and it's like, no time has gone by. But some people talk every day, and other people every couple of weeks or every month. And my sister Liz is, another strong woman in my family, and my sister Kelsey as well. And so, yeah, I think it's being as supportive as I can be, and celebrating those achievements that women in my life have had. And honestly, it's forward thinking too, Tony. And it's the world we live in. Sometimes there are always people trying to push us down. All the progress that's been made, there's been so much progress made over the years for women, especially, and there are still people in this country trying to halt that progress and push women backwards. And if I can be a small sliver of progress or hope or support to keep things trending in the right direction, sign me up. Especially now that I have a daughter who's going to be living in this world and growing up in it, and I want her to enjoy the same successes and the same opportunities, and then some,
Yeah,
to succeed as the people in my generation.
absolutely. John, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
I'm on social media, hesitantly now, but no, I have is it Twitter,
X.
X, you name it. Reluctantly have a Twitter page, Instagram, Facebook. Normally, I'm pretty good about responding. You can also listen to me at texasstars.com is where all of our broadcasts are. We have like a free audio stream for every game. We're also on AHL TV, and I'm really excited to continue doing this for a 10th season now. 10 years pro. This will be my 4th year already in Texas, Tony. It's time
Wow.
flies, but 4th season now with the Stars, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's challenging, it's rewarding, it's fun, and it's difficult, and it's I wouldn't trade it for the
Yeah.
world.
Well,
So
thank you for coming on and for being one of the men in my life that lift me up. And even because John and I can go, gosh, months with not touching base, and then it's like we just pick right back up, and it's a forever
yeah,
friendship. And So I'm just honored to be a part of it, and tell your wonderful family I said hello, and especially your wife.
I will.
Tell Carrie I said hey, and thanks for being
Absolutely.
on.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, and keep up the great work. I mean, it's so easy to root for what you're doing and support what you're doing, because it's inspiring. And I was really excited to get your email to be a part of it, and keep
Thank
it up.
you, thank you. So how did I do? Reverse, me interviewing you for a change.
You're a natural. I knew you'd be fine. I knew you'd be good at it. You're a natural. I mean, I should have had, we should have had you doing Just Winging It.
And I do find that I enjoy it, but I didn't know what to expect. But hey, all pun intended, I have been just winging it. So
Put me behind the camera with Tim and let you run away with Just Winging It. It'd be a heck of a lot more entertaining.
Oh, well, thanks, John. Now, if the listeners want to get in touch with me,
Yep.
you can find me at kalamazoowings.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I am not on X or Twitter or any of that, but I am on Instagram, mindfulnesselevated.com and TonyWillCoaching.com. It's not hard to find me. And I respond to everything as well. So thanks, everyone, and thanks, John.